Hey everyone. Wow. It's a bit emotional and moving to be up here. 9 years in the making. We've had so many great speakers on the stage, great people in the audience. Next year marks the 10th anniversary, Decade of Brilliant Minds. And thank you. And I remember when I took this concept idea to Daniel to discuss building this with me, I was greatly disappointed when he said, we're actually working on our own tech event at Spotify. But he said, go meet with the team, sync with them. And I went there, no expectations, just thinking, I'll go hear them out, see what they're doing so I know. And when I got to the meeting, it was a weird meeting because they hadn't prepared anything. They didn't present anything. They just said, oh no, Daniel told us to drop whatever we're doing and just help you build whatever you're doing. So here we are. Thank you all for helping Daniel and I realize this arrogant ambition and vision to put Sweden and Stockholm on the world map through this conference. But it wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for the centerpiece, which is all of you. Guests, speakers, attendees. You're all obviously brilliant and accomplished in your own right. And obviously a huge thanks to the team, the board, for all the hard work that it takes to do this every year. I mean, I feel we did put Sweden on the map, right? So, on to my panel for today. I'm sure all of you have heard of stem cells and stem cell therapies, but just to frame the room, and I know it's a hot topic, but how many people are more negatively inclined than positively inclined around stem cell therapies and getting them? Everyone's positive, that's amazing. So how many of you feel that you know what these therapies can do today? So not that many. And this is exactly the question that drove me to learn more about stem cells, and we hope to share some of those learnings with you today. So help me introduce to the stage Professor Katarina Blanc, Professor of Clinical Stem Cell Research at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, and Dr. Mattias Bernow, CEO of Cellcolabs. So, Professor LeBlanc, I'll start with you. You've dedicated 20 years doing research around multipotent cells, and you're one of the world's foremost experts on the subject. You're a member in several committees, including the Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institute, the Royal Swedish Academy of Science, and appointed by the Pope as an ordinary member in the Pontifical Academy for Life in the Vatican City. And I just read today he came out of the hospital, and I quote, which is timely, the doctor said he's better than when he came in. Which begs the question of what kind of treatment he got. We're not going to go there, but can you please explain to us in layman's terms what mesenchymal stroma cells are and why you've dedicated 20 years of your life studying them?
So, thank you. Science doesn't start with a story, it starts with little questions. And then hopefully, once you answered one question, it will give rise to more questions. And then after a long period of time, you might be asked to write a review or give a talk. And you look back and you see, wow, there's actually a story there. And you were busy the whole time just answering the little urgent daily questions. So I am a hematologist. I work in blood cells. I'm interested in the formation of blood cells that happens in the bone cavity, the marrow cavity of large bones. And I stumbled onto some bone scientists who were interested in fracture repair. And their repair of the fractures was not so successful, but what they said is, it looks like our cells suppress inflammation. They're anti-inflammatory. And I said, wow, that's my area. I'm a hematologist. I work with blood cells. I like the immune system. I'd like to understand that mechanism that you described. So we took the cells back in the lab. We isolated the cells from the marrow cavity of healthy donors. volunteers, and we looked at the properties, and in fact, yes, they were anti-inflammatory. So then we said, well, maybe we can use these cells to regulate uncontrolled, life-threatening inflammation, which is my daily physical work as a doctor. And we tried it in a couple of patients, and it seemed to work in not all patients, but in about half of the patients and a little over half in children. So that, of course, then gives us great hope that maybe we can save the lives of people who have a threatening medical problem. But it also raises a lot of questions. What are we doing? Are these cells dangerous? Do we induce tumors with them? They're leukemia patients. Does the leukemia come back? So a long list of questions that needed to be answered. And most importantly, the results that we obtained needed to be replicated in numerous labs all over the world, because if they're not replicable, they're not really true in science. So answering the fact that they actually are safe, and we learned, I think, with time that the fears of tumor induction or uncontrolled differentiation to bone in the heart or something might lie in the fact that we're using natural cells. So we're not manipulating the cells, we're not changing the cells, we're not editing the cells, we're just growing the cells as they occur in healthy young individuals who volunteer to donate cells. But still in science, if you're claiming that you have a clinical effect, but you don't really have a mode of action, then what you're saying is not really substantiated. So it took the field and thousands of scientific publications to prove that the mode of action of the cells after we put them in patients was not the same as what we initially thought when we studied the cells and their anti-inflammation in the lab. But it was really a mechanism that occurs in all of us, in healthy tissue, that we had overlooked. We hear so much about activation of the immune system and how bacteria, viruses, damage will activate the immune system. But what wasn't really recognized in the scientific community is that healthy tissue undergoes daily repair. And there is an anti-inflammatory reparative mechanism of all our tissues. And it was that mechanism, that all is well signal, that we took from the healthy volunteers, grew the cells, and could tip the scale into a more anti-inflammatory mode in the patients. But that's taken 25 years, and now we have 800 clinical trials ongoing all over the world. So it's a lot. There's still a lot of science that needs to be done before we can pick the right patients, pick the right diseases, pick the right timing and other medication to fully understand, because they're complex systems. But I believe that we're safe in that we're using nature's own inventions, so we're not generating something from scratch.
Fascinating.
Very long answer.
That was great. Dr. Bernow, you hold an MD from Karolinska Institute and a Master of Science from Stockholm School of Economics. You've worked with both as a physician at Karolinska and a management consultant at Boston Consulting Group before starting your own journey into this sector. So, given your background as a physician and a management consultant, what kind of perspective can you bring to this sector?
Well, just listening to what Katarina says and the work she has done and the field of stem cells, it is obvious that the opportunity of stem cells will change not only healthcare, but the world as a whole, and I think how we look at life. The possibilities is just amazing. All of you in here know somebody with a chronic disease or an acute disease that is not curable by conventional healthcare of today. And with the promise of stem cells, suddenly there is a possibility either to treat or maybe even cure. And that is just amazing. But I think what is even more interesting to me is that treating, that's kind of secondary. That is what we do when disease has already occurred. There is an opportunity to use stem cells preventatively. As Katarina said, that they have a strong anti-inflammatory effect. Inflammation is driving aging. It's driving all of the diseases we know, almost. And if we can use that, we can use the stem cells for treating the diseases, but we can also treat them preventatively. But really, to your question, what can I contribute to the field, having this background that I do? I come in as an entrepreneur, and what we have done over the past 2 years building Cellcolabs is that we've been allowed by Professor Blanc to take her protocols that she has developed over the past 20 years, treating over 150 patients with amazing safety records. And we're setting up industrial scale production of the cells. So we're working with the mission and vision to make these cells that are hard to come by, they're extremely expensive, available and affordable to anyone in need. We have in record time, over the past 18 months, built a facility located just between the Karolinska Institute and the University Hospital. We have taken over, we've done the tech transfer, we scaled it up over 100 times. We've applied for and we've been approved by the Swedish Medical Products Agency. We got the final approval in February, and in March we actually started production of the cells by Katarina. And come Monday, we will ship the first cells at a completely different price level. The best in the world, according to Katarina's protocols, to be used in trials on arthritis and aging frailty. And after summer, we're actually financing ourselves a study on the Bahamas on that is purely preventative, aiming a little bit towards cardiovascular disease, which is, once again, an inflammation-driven family of diseases. And there, through their amazing, really strong, solid regulatory framework, we're following everything, how it's done in the EU or in the US, but they also have the opportunity to do patient-financed research, meaning that people in need of treatment or in demand of treatment can actually go there and get hold of these cells.
It's amazing. I mean, if we future gaze here and we think about the future, what do you see that these cells can be used for? How often, how frequent? I've heard you say before that it's the penicillin of the 21st century.
Yes, absolutely. If you're young and healthy, maybe they're interested in using preventatively every 3 to 5 years. And as you grow older, you have increased inflammation and actual disease, then you may want to use them more often.
So what could they be used for? Could they be used for curing cancer, heart disease, brain disease, superhuman abilities? What do you see in the future?
I think in 5 to 10 years they will be used by everyone who enters a hospital. And like you give vitamin D to yourselves living in Sweden or small children, I think you will use them regularly.
5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years,
impressive.
Yes. But for the moment being, I mean, Professor LeBlanc, you have treated the graft versus host disease when you get a bone marrow transplant and you throw it out and you're about to die. You've been able to show that that is very effective. That is now being used on a daily basis around the world. The research as such is very, it's clear that it's positive on arthritis, there are positive effects on Alzheimer and many other chronic diseases. And we're just getting into the preventative effect, knowing that there is actual effect. And this can all be done due to the fantastic safety profile that you talked about. Because if there is no risk, there is almost only upside. So it will be widely used.
You've probably answered what you think of the topic and the question, that it's not overhyped, and it's certainly looking like this new type of miracle cure that will be widely available.
You want to take that one?
I'll be more cautious. So I've been through this. I was very positive early on, I really believed. And then, of course, when you come with a message, then you're questioned. And there was a long down period where people had to replicate the results, where the trials had to be done, where the trials needed to be compared in order to understand when the treatment was right. And a lot of data is now accumulating, but it's taken 25 years. And now I think we can begin to look forward. And as Mattias said, the preventative aspect has not really even been addressed yet. That's coming. And maybe that's even more, has more potential. I'm a scientist, so I only talk in retrospect. So I am assuming that that's going to happen, but I won't claim that it will happen for another 20 years.
And I think that all of you in this room, you've seen this in whatever field you're working within, whether it's AI, glucose, self-driving cars, or just entrepreneurs or founders or investors. Early on, we tend to overestimate the impact of something, but in the long run, we drastically underestimate the efficacy of whatever new technology there is. And I think, Katarina, you worked 20 years in this, so you were very positive in the beginning, then negative for quite a long time, and now suddenly we're using your cells to change the world.
You need the support of others to confirm your findings in whatever field you are.
On that note, we've run out of time, but thank you so much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.